Guys, I guess got a couple pamphlets up here. They're kind of a repeat, I think, of what I did 3-4 years ago. So if you turn the pages there, if you see something that you want to ask me about or stop, I might go by it rather fast or maybe not explain it properly or thoroughly. So if you see something there that perks your interest, you know, let's talk over a little bit. And you know, not that I have the best ideas, but this is, you know, kind of how I approach it. So if somebody else has something to add to it to make it a little bit easier to understand, have at her, okay? So with that, I guess, guys, if you got the pamphlet, you can kind of keep me honest. I don't know if I'm gonna look at every page here, but we'll get started. So probably one of the first things, I guess, in my mind that seems to be probably, you know, something to talk about is choice of wood. So I like white cedar, cheap. It's maybe not readily available, but it's a little easier to get than Tupelo. And unless you're doing a lot of fine detailing, it's, you know, it's a nice, you know, if you're just going to paint up a, you know, a smoothie or something just to sit on the shelf. But it has a tendency, if you're in there with a chisel, be careful, you'll hit a grain and she'll run on you, then you'll be getting the epoxy out. So, but it's a nice wood to work with. Okay, with that being said, the other thing that I like to do is, you know, I'll run them through the planer. You know, everybody buys rough sawed lumber, but plane them up, and then the next step I do is I try to get it as square as possible. You know, when you buy this rough lumber, you know, it's rough. So a lot of times you might have a live edge where you get some bark on there, so you get a big enough piece, you can size it to what you want, you know, depending on the size of your pattern. I think this was roughly 8 inches to fit a mallard. And from time to time, if I got something that's 7 3/4, well, all of a sudden that mallard's going to have a little narrower side. I'm not going to waste a piece of wood. So, you know, yeah, so everybody can kind of doctor up a little bit to fit what you got going on. But so I like to square it up because as I lay my pattern on here, I'd like to chase a lot of the lines around the block. So the more accurate you are, the more it's going to reflect accuracy as you kind of work through things. So it may not necessarily be absolutely square, but even, you know, so say if you're not exactly parallel, say maybe you're 7 15, 16, you're 8 1/8. Is that a deal breaker? Probably not, because I mean it's going to take a lot of time to plane that down and get that flat. But the other thing is, if it is, at least always measure from the same side of the block. You know, if you're 4 inches here, make sure you're 4 inches here and chase around that way. And then the other thing, as you saw it, if you're a little bit out of plumb, out of square, if you got your bandsaw, you're sawing about 10, 11 inches thick, you know, it's going to compound that angle, that trough a little bit. So as you prep your block, I usually like to get one side that, you know, it can be a little bit rough to put my pattern on, but the side that I'm going to, you know, run through the saw, you can see one side of the block I got a lot smoother. So I put it on that, you know, the table bed of the saw. She's not rocking. So the other side, if there's a little rubberness to this side here, I really don't care. So with that being said, I kind of chase my lines around the block. So this is a real interesting part of the show where you can watch me draw lines. All right. So if you want to take a swig of your pop, well, I'm chasing a line around the block, and I kind of like to change around all 4 sides. Sometimes there's sooner or later there'll be a reason that you want to relocate your line on one end of the block or the other. So you might as well chase it all the way around the first time just to make sure you got it there, because once it's all sawed up in pieces, it's kind of a pain in the butt to go back. This particular piece of wood, there's a little knot on the top here. So again, inspect your wood, kind of size up your pattern, and kind of see what you're going to get the most adaptable piece out of. So I've made a few mallards for the last few years, so usually when I cut them off, I got some culls, some scraps left over, so I'll just kind of keep one as a pattern. So with this pattern here, again, now that I have all these lines on here, you know, I got a center line, I got a center line, right? Look over my block, you know, there's a knot here, so I want to get rid of that knot, so obviously let's put that back by the tail, right? So, well, it's a little lumpy, so it should be symmetrical, so if you turn it upside down, it should be the same thing, guys, right?
In theory.
In theory, in theory. And you'll notice on my pattern, I got a couple bullet holes in there, a couple little holes there. And that's kind of to help locate my shoulder points later on, so as you're carving the side of the bird, so you're symmetrical again. So on those little points there, just put a little pin trick there. So here again, so the side that was square, this block was pretty good, so I'm gonna just kind of brave it a little bit. So now that I know where those two shoulder points are, you know, dots line up with the square, line up with the block, go straight across, right? Also, back of the bird, where kind of the tail ends, it's so darn easy to get your tail off, so what I like to do is make these points. So sometimes when you saw your pattern, you're in here with your saw, you get a little goofy with your socket, you lose an eighth, you lose a quarter. If you put the sign all the way across here, you can kind of see there might be a little fuzziness in your pattern. This one's actually back about an eighth, 3/16, but so as I saw this, I know if I stop here and I stop here, I can phony the rest of this curve back in, so I can just kind of touch this up a little bit and get that curve to where it matches that line. Okay, so now with these shoulder points, kind of the same thing. Chase around the block. Even on the bottom, there'll be a point in time where you'll want to know where those points are there as well. So if I have any value as a carpenter, tell me, when I bring this line all the way around, will these all four connect? Not too bad, huh? Okay. So we got that on there. These other side pocket lines that I made, same thing too. I'll chase a few of those around. Ooh, got that. Working better than out in the garage usually. Okay, so once I got that lines chased around there, now I got all four sides with the center line. I brought the shoulder points down. And so now the shoulder points, you're probably wondering why that's important to me. So, and this is to the saw side. So now I'm going to lay my side pattern on top of the block. So I don't know if you want to look at the pattern here, but on the pattern I got a point right here. This is how deep I want to drill that hole for the shoulder points. So later on, before I do any cutting on this, I'm going to drill that hole. So as a starter, here again, you guys didn't catch me, a few more lines I missed. So I want to know the front of this pattern, and I want to know the back of it. So what that does, that helps me locate the front of this breast cut, well, right off the front of this, so that I know that the front of this is absolutely going to be the same as that, right? So it kind of, you know, all the parts start coming together all of a sudden. So if I set this on the side here again, I match up that shoulder point, mark the front of my pattern here, lined up there, and my back here. Here again, my pattern could have been from another bird, 1/8 inch long here, but we can all make adjustments. That's the beauty of carving, right? So here again, I'll just kind of trace this pattern on here. I'm not one to waste a lot of wood. So if you see this piece of wood could have been a little thicker to accommodate this particular pattern. This may be a skinnier duck later on. That's all, that's all I'm going to say. Okay, so with that on there, so now maybe I'll pass this pattern around. So this point right here, so as I put the side pocket on here, I know I want to get to this depth right alongside the neck. I guess I'm calling it a shoulder point for anything better descriptive. So that point went up there, and now that's here and that's here. So I go on the drill press, and I'll take my drill press and I'll set the depth of my drill bit to match that depth of that there, which is throw a tape on here quick. So in this particular case, let's get the numbers wore off, excuse me. So that shoulder point, I'm about 2 3/4 inches up from the bottom. Okay, so that's how deep I want to drill that hole. So then I'll go to the drill press. I'll just, bring down the drill press till my drill bit gets to this point, set the lock on it. Okay, I'm good to go. Then I'll put this on here so the block is still square, so your holes are going to be perpendicular to the block, right? So now I take the drill press, drill this hole. So later on, as you're carving, you just kind of keep chasing that hole down. So as long as you see that drill bit pattern, or that hole from the drill bit, you're following where you need to be, right? So that's kind of a good way to get kind of good even balance to either side of your bird. So just trying to make sure I don't forget to drill something else before I cut the pattern apart. So if you go through the book, there's a point where I drill the hole for the head, and I usually drill that while the block is still square, but I'll have the top removed. So regardless what that book says, it could be a little confusing there. So then getting ready to make the cuts here. So the pattern's on, top and side. We got these 2 holes located. So then I kind of label my cuts because, every once in a while you get confused. Like I did Sunday, I cut a bird. I didn't ruin the bird, but I blew through my pattern and it made it a little tougher to recover and get my layout reestablished. So on my pattern here, now that I know this works, cuts 1, 2, and 3. So I'll make this my first cut, second cut, third cut. I'll get rid of this stuff here. That's basically scrap. All right. So cut number 4 is my neckline. So I want that as flat and square as possible. So when I put that head later on, I don't have to do a lot of tuning to get that set in there properly. So I'll chase this neckline out to the front. And I don't know if it's just me or maybe you guys think that's where you should tilt your head. No, keep that cut square to your block. I mean, you can always adjust your head cut when you get ready to do that, but keep that flat. So when you drill your hole again, so later on when this cull is removed from the top, this piece is off here, again, now you're drilling your hole for your head through a flat piece of block. It's 90 degrees again. Okay, so I guess that's on there. The holes have been drilled. Labeled my cuts. I think I got up to 3 and I got distracted. So I got 1, 2, 3. 4th cut is the neck. 5th cut, I'll take the top off. And 6th. So here again is kind of builder discretion, I guess, guys, right? So depends how thick you want the bottom. If you want 1 inch off there, or if you want 3/4 inch off there, depends how you want to hollow it out, how much board you feel it's necessary to glue back on. I usually use 3/4 inch, nice round working number. And it might be right at the water at the seam line, but if we all put it back on with the pockets here, waterproof glue. I've not had one of them fall off sitting on the shelf at home yet. All right. Oops. Hook to green. Okay, so that's lines on there. Okay, so that'll be my 6th cut that I make. 7th cut will be up front. So one thing I want to kind of maybe stress is when you make cut number 4, number 5, try to be as accurate as possible here. Don't let one overrun the other way, because then you're going to have a little divot that you're going to kind of grind out or modify or put epoxy in here. So kind of take your time and get that just right. Okay. So I guess at this point, I would be ready to go up to the bandsaw and do my magic on it. So I don't know if everybody does it. Some guys may do the flat first. I like to do the side first. Okay. I don't know if you guys want to look at the pattern here, but just kind of show you some of the things to think about as you go through it, I guess. So, due to the speed of magic, as you get ready to make those cuts, there's going to be certain times where you want to, I don't know, evaluate your block or see how big a block you have to work with, how much cull, how much scratch you're going to have. So in this particular case, you know, I cut it all the way around here. Let's take the tape off, I guess. So the back piece, heel, if you want to call it that, whatever, you know, that's probably not generally too important. So if that goes away, that's fine. You know, the little scrap here that falls out eventually, and that's fine. So after you got all the rest of your cuts made, you know, your block is going to come right out of this thing. Believe me, it worked at home. I know what break. So that's kind of in a perfect world, it'll come out like such. But what I want to say, I guess, as you do this, you know, your cuts have been made, and here's that top cull I was talking about. So try to make that accurate as possible. So if your skill saw has a little flex, a little bend in the blade, you're going to end up with this a little bit, which is recoverable, but it's better than being, you know, way out of whack. So save this piece, you're going to need that for later on, right? And on this particular one, as you can see, this is off. Here again, these holes are here, so now you don't have to try to relay out things again. They've already been established before, so that's already on there. And probably one other thing to mention, as you make some of these cuts, I think I got it on the back of my pattern, there's going to be a point in time where, okay, I made my side cuts. Follow my profile here, right? But you don't want your top board to fall off. You still want that under for your pattern for the next round as you make your flat cut. So you can see I put a couple screws in there, so I kind of screw this back on. So that kind of, you know, ensures that my pattern is still accurate. It's all well and good back here, so with all these lines you can understand where your scrap space is, so you know where to put your screw so you don't hit it with your bandsaw. The one that's kind of tricky is in front if you do it this way. Because if you look where this breast cut is right here, and if you were to saw that up a little further, you know, or if you were to put the screw back here to hold your scraps together, your bandsaw is going to hit that screw. So just make sure that, stop and think a little bit as you're going to make this cut. Where's my scrap wood? Where have I already been cut? Where can I put the screw so I don't hit that with the bandsaw? Otherwise you're going to be buying yourself another blade. So I think I got it in that book there as well, but just to kind of point it out, there's been a time or two where I thought, oh shit, I forgot to do that, and it falls apart. So it's kind of nice to lock your block back together while you make your cuts. So while all that had happened, so, you know, the top cut was made, I got the bottom off. So here again, got the bottom off so I can haul it out later on. So put all the kind of the scrap pieces back in place, as accurate as we can get it again. So in theory, this block should still be square, it should be flat to itself. So as I chase any of these lines down the side, they should still be square with the world. So I like to chase that shoulder line down again. And these other lines, I guess, they're kind of evident where they belong. But if you ever, you know, grind something away, get out of whack, you got something to refer back to. So at this point, I like to, you know, again, take the square, make sure we're lined up here, and I like to get that center line reestablished. So I guess I did this one the other day just to save a little time. So again, if I'm square to the world, I'm getting my center back where it belongs. Kind of a small surface to work with, but the same thing, I'll chase my center from this top layout block. I'll get that on the tail piece, okay? So once I've got that under, then I'll chase that line all the way across again. So here again, when you brought these lines up, I got the lines across the bottom, across the front, where the shoulder line is. And if you can't quite chase it up the side here, if your pattern was somewhat symmetrical, again, you can just, the furthest distance away are, if I'm at 3.5 or whatever it is, do the math. So I got 1 3/4 should be center. So if I'm off an 1/8 or 16th, we're going to shape this as we carve it anyway. It'll get you back in the ballpark. So now I got this line chased across here. So the next thing I like to do after this, eventually we got to put this on a vise and put the keel on there. So it's probably one of the last pages of the book. So this is just kind of a handle, the paint, the carve, whatever, and it kind of fits the screw pattern that I put in my keel. So I use, I think I'm about 5 inches center to center. So everybody kind of develops what they think feels right based on the size of the bird. So I go 3, then I go 5. That seems to fit the mallard pretty good. And that'll fit this handle for temporary handling of the duck. And it also fits the layout when I put this on my portable vise on the garage. So here again, I got a couple holes that'll fit on here that handles it up pretty well if I put it on the vise. Okay, so now that we know where that's at, I take this off. So again, I reestablish that center line from point A to point B. Okay, so I know I was 3 inches back. This has got a little curve here, so I just go back 3 inches off that front point again, get my accuracy back. So eventually my screw, after they go through here, it's going to go into this block. So I'm going to kind of put these marks on here at this point. You may think it's all going to be wasted, hollowed out. It will, but what I like to do, I think Tom explained it last week a little bit as well, I like to leave a post here. So when I screw this back on, I got a little surface here that helps to glue this down, and it also gives you something to put your screw in so you get a little bit extra meat in there. So what I like to do is make these a little bit early, because what happens usually when you got the Forstner brake going, things jump around a little bit. So I usually make them about 1 1/4 inches wide. So if I know my screw is going to go in this particular location, I'll try to leave about 5/8 of meat all the way around the screw. So I got about 1 1/4 inch square block for it. It helps to give you a little gluing surface, keep that bottom from bowing, and it gives you enough meat when you put that screw in there so you don't explode that post. Now on the front side, it's kind of a maybe a little more difficult to understand, or maybe not understand, but at least explain. So now that this block is square, and I know where my shoulder points are going to be up here, I'll just relocate them again. All I got to do is line up between the 2 dots here. Get my center point back on. Can't find my center, so I'll make a center, right? Whatever the math is. 3 1/4, it's a 3/4 plus another 1/8, right? 1 7 inches. For those of you that are still working on that number. Yeah. So I like to kind of, maybe I don't have to have the head completely done, but at least I got a head roughed out. Then they're kind of hard. But back on that cut 4 and 5 where it came back together, that was the back of the neck of that head. So I know I'm going to want the back of that head. Nestled up tight against there. This is, just a scrap head I had out the garage, but I know that's going to be there. In the center of this head here again, when I laid this out on the block, I got center in here. So if I got center and center, I know where I'm at. And then what I'm leading up to, when I drill the hole in this block, I'll just, find a center mark, chase it to the side. That's where it's at. That's where it's at. So you're centered this way under, right? So now you just take those 2 other indicator marks you just made, which is, you know, back from my shoulder line, probably about 1/4 through 3/16. Connect the dots. So this is where the post is going to be drilled for the neck, right? So that'll match that particular head. So if I drill one of these different than another one, I would do the same method to find out where that hole's going to be. The reason that's important to me, just like I mentioned before, put a measurement on that. So that post is going to go into that block 2 1/4 inches back from the front. So back to what I was saying, so 2 1/4 inches back from the front of that block, I want to make sure I don't have a void here, so when I drill that hole in there, I got some meat to lock that dowel in place. So this is going to be my neck post. Then not that the neck goes this far down all the way through the block, but at least I'm eliminating risk that I might take too much out and kind of weaken that connection. So then, you know, get ready to hollow out this block, I know I'll save this. I'm going to save this. I don't want to destroy that. And I just, you know, randomly say, okay, maybe I take 5/8 off here. Just kind of, you know, give me an idea where I want to hollow this out. You know, kind of just. So if that's my neck post, I can afford to take some of this out of here. So if I want to leave a little meat around here, I can still remove some of this here to kind of lighten up the load, help balance things out. So all this stuff can be removed. And that'll be my 2 posts that'll secure your keel, helps glue down your bottom, and eventually it locks everything together again.
You're leaving about 1/2 inch from the wall?
1/2 inch, 5/8. Because I mean, you're going to round the side of this a little bit, so just in the back of your mind, well, by the time I put the chine on this thing, I'm going to lose maybe 1/4, 3/8. So if anything, leave this a little proud, right? So if I don't worry too much, sometimes I'll take the block at this point, I'll head over to the drill press, and I'll start hollowing out. If you're got a good eye, put it that way. Otherwise, you may want to, you know, attach your board, you know, do a little, maybe do 80, 90% of your carving, get all your carving done, so now you know what your outside profile is. But the risk of that is if you do a lot of rounding here, when you put this back in the drill press, there still should be enough meat to kind of keep you balanced. But I mean, if you change anything with your carving your grind here, so you're probably going to have a high point somewhere in here, which will ride on that saddle. That'll keep you pretty stable on the drill press. So if you feel confident that you can, you know, do your guessing, I shouldn't call it guessing, but, you know, figure out that, okay, I can go down, you know, 1.5 inches, in the middle I can go 3, take a pair of calipers, just check yourself. You could do it at this point. Otherwise, if you want to get as thin as possible or really have a nice even contour, I would recommend do a lot of your carving on the outside first. And then one other thing with the patterns here that I've kind of worked with, again, back to that shoulder point. So if I want to know where my side pocket's going to go, I just kind of line this up. Side pocket on one side. Again, that lines up that shoulder point off that pattern. So there's your side pockets. More cardboard. So again, this pattern, I got this keyed in, so here again, that shoulder point, I know where that shoulder point is. Hits my pattern, it hits the back. This lines up with the side of that side pocket. Flip it over, line it up with that hole that I had drilled there, kind of the same thing. Automatically lines itself up. So now you know you get your side pockets here, so now you know, okay, I'm going to go down to this drill bit depth right at this point here, and here's where the curve of my shoulder is going to be. So boom, you shoulder that off. After that, it's pretty intuitive. Everything kind of starts rounding back together. Okay. Any questions? Okay. All right, nothing to it, right? Okay, so again, with the head, talk a little bit about the head. So this particular mallard, I got kind of a low head position. So if you look at this, the bill of this duck, it's lower than the cut I made here. So sometimes you might get confused and say, well, God, how do I get that beak lower than where my neck joint's gonna be? So again, you'll lay it all out, and this will be, so I've numbered my cuts. Again, here's the importance of having your block kind of square. And I guess just kind of a somewhat of a repeat process. So if I get the block square, I got center all the way around it. I got my patterns that I use for this particular bird. Side view, top view, I got a center line. So when I'm ready to do this, usually I lay my side on first just so I know what I got to work with. So I'll lay this pattern on here, trace it out, make sure I got enough clearance to work with. That's on there. Once I have that on there, here again, chase these lines up the side, chase these lines up the side. I have the center mark here, center mark here. Boom, it's that fast. You get the nose on there, you get the beak on there, you get the top of the head. Front profile, same thing. I got the line here, center line. To line this head up, just take your square. If this was the top of your head, bring that line forward. That tells you where this one needs to stop, right? So you're gonna match that line. So it's down about a 1/4 inch, put the center in center. You'll chase it out. So in about, 2-3 minutes, you got your head laid out. So don't cut it yet. Now run to the drill press. The block is flat, square. You may choose to use a different size drill bit. Maybe you want to use an 1/8 inch, 3/16, but obviously you want to be smaller than that glass eye you're going to put in there. So drill that hole in here. It doesn't have to come through the other side, just so that you know you're deep enough that you're penetrating here somewhere, right? Later on, when it all comes apart, you're going to have your eyes perfectly centered. And then at this point, here again, the block is a nice flat square. This is when I will drill that hole for the post. Okay, so once that's on there, life is good. So then once you have that all chased on there, just looking at my cuts here, the way I typically go chase it around, I'll do my top cut first on the head. I'll leave a little gap here so the wood doesn't fall off. I want to keep the culls on here to keep the pattern intact. I'll leave a little gap so it's kind of like I got cut, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is. So I'll have all these cuts. Then I'll take and I'll make this top cut next, kind of the same thing. I'll make this cut, and I'll leave a little connection here, a little scrap to keep all the block in place. And then I'll make this final cut here. So while it's all still connected, this is when I'll make this neck cut. Nice and straight as possible. Then after the neck cut is done, then I'll go back and I'll finish the remainder of the head. So that kind of gives you a way to get your bill extended down below your neck.
Rich,
Yeah.
can you tip that so that the camera can see what you're doing? You were doing it on top.
Oh, okay. Top, side,
Yeah,
front.
the profile. Just let us see the profile on the camera. Yeah.
Ooh.
That you were looking at that.
Okay. No, if you want to see something that's not shown to bark at me, that's fine. All right, so this is just a blank block. I kind of skipped ahead, but here again, the importance of square, chase that line all around, and these patterns just will fall into place, like I say, in about 2 or 3 minutes. So this has no other marking on it. Square this up in the bottom, that'll give you that flat surface. Divide up what you want left for scrap, so this will be laid out in about 3 seconds. Chase that around. It didn't move. Here again, a little dot for the eye, so I know where to find my eye later on. Slow motion, repeat myself here, so I'll chase those lines up. Again, I got my center line on there. Now I know that the back of the neck's got to line up the back of the neck there. Connect the dots. Center to center to center. Got the top profile, front profile, just to make sure I get the head at the tops all match. Bring that line forward. Matches that for height. Matches my center lines. There, you're ready to cut another head. Goes that fast, all right? So, with that being said, made all those nice little cuts. So here's what you're going to end up with. Through the magic of TV here. So here's all your scraps, right? So I didn't screw anything back on. Typically these are, you know, small enough pieces that fall away, I don't need them. So if I make my first cut, which is, you know, my top cut, here again, like I say, I leave a little connecting little dot, little cheater here. So I make the top cut, and I'll turn it, I'll make my vertical. Some of these scraps here, they'll fall away. So, Bruce, do the honors, crack that egg, would you?
Do what?
Crack that egg open, or give it to Steve alongside you. I mean,
Go ahead.
once you do that, you'll see just that head is just about there. After
Hit
that,
it here?
just take the two sides and just twist them off.
No.
I know you want to do that. Go ahead, it's fine.
Oh, that's part of, oh, do I still want to do this part though?
Whatever you want to do. No harm done.
Oh, no.
No, not that side. Go ahead. So I mean, it comes apart that simple, guys. There you are with the head.
It's like Michelangelo.
Quack, quack.
Yeah. So again, as soon as you get it to that stage, you know, again, just find your centers, get your center line on there. Try to always keep center.
Rich, you suppose the Ward brothers did it this way?
What's that?
Did the Ward brothers do it your way?
I doubt it.
I think Michelangelo did that.
But I mean, you know, it's, maybe not call it a process, but, you know, just the layout, like anything else, that's probably the most important. If you get things out of whack, it's kind of hard to recover, but the more you can kind of keep the center line chase, keep things balanced, you can always kind of tweak things to blend them back together. All right? Any other thoughts? Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thanks, Rich.